Hello friends, hello family, hello loved ones, hello hated ones. Today I'm going to talk about how I made my little dude, my little home slice, bread slice, the Squonk. He's one of my favorite guys. I'm really happy with how he came out. I guess I'll start by talking about his backstory. Very great. A little sad, unfortunately. This dude has a lot of insecurity. Very relatable. I have gone through these trials and tribulations myself, but we have changed his backstory a little bit so that he has a happy ending, I guess. Pardon the interruption. I just received some information from the bear gods that I must bestow upon all of you. Also, I apologize. My family's still sleeping, so I might be talking quietly. I just want to say that I made these videos to help out anyone who's looking to get into the clay face community or who's just looking for some art insight on things like this. I do want to strongly encourage people not to go to Clayface creators' pages and copy their work that they've created or their styles. I know so many kind souls who put in so much work to get to the point where they are now, and besides, it's just more fulfilling to create your own style and make bears that really reflect who you are as a person. Makes your heart go va-va-boom. Thank y'all so much for listening to Human Lucy. Now let's get back to Elf Lucy. Let's talk about a squonk. A squonk is a folklore creature. Wait, what? Squonk? Pennsylvania. The squonk is found in Pennsylvania. He is known, this is other people's words, not my words, but he's known for being ugly. And he cries all the time because of that. He cries because he's ugly and he doesn't like it. He's described as having a lot of wrinkles, a lot of warts, some hair. He looks very sad. To me, when I hear this, I hear nothing but beauty. And so I decided I was going to make a squonk because I heard about him on TikTok and I was like, yes, I'm going to make that into an anti-bear. Love the idea. But I have gone through so much insecurity myself and I didn't want this dude to be so sad because he's ugly. No. We are transforming ugly, the term ugly. I made my own little story for this dude where he used to be very insecure, cry because he was insecure, because he thought he was ugly. But he has come to a place now where he cries all the time because he's sad that other people have put these expectations on themselves. So we have gone over the background to this dude. We will now get into the making of this dude, which is very fun and definitely took more time than I was anticipating, hence why I've been off of posting my bears for such a long time, but we'll get into that. To begin making an anti-bear, I selected which bear bod would be the best one to fit the vibe. I was thinking something a little short and stout, a little fun, a little fresh. For the beginning parts of this process, I definitely think about references, things that I want to include, even outside of just looking at pictures of Squonk themselves, which I will say there are so many amazing artist interpretations. I'll try to put some around and stuff of a squonk and, reading about the background of this character and stuff. People are really creative. Apparently he turns into a pile of water or a puddle of tears. There we go. Whenever it's spooked. And I relate to that. When I'm looking at references and stuff, I then create my concept sketch, which is rough. It's rough, buddy. But that's not the important part. The important part is the end result. But I want to make sure that I think about the most important parts of the process whenever I'm making the concept sketch and things that will be doable, definitely. Thinking about textures that I want to include, which we'll talk about texture in a second. So now we got our concept sketch and everything. We got our references. So now it's time to start. So first things first is pretty gnarly, I'll say. Just kidding, it's not that bad. You gotta cut the face off the bear. The face can't be on the bear anymore if you're gonna make a clay face for it. And so I cry every single time I do this. Joking. But it's a faceless bear. And you gotta take the face off and take the stuffing out so that you can make a new art piece. Hell yeah. For the squonk, I'll give you a little insight into the process of some things that could possibly happen. Most times I have an idea for what I want to do whenever I dye a bear, and I would say about 1% of the time it comes out the way that I want it to. But that's okay. It's okay. Life is full of little happy mistakes, as a great artist once said. So originally, I had seen this picture of a squonk, and it was a little more tan, red undertones and stuff. And so I got tan dye, you know what it's called and stuff. And I was like, yeah, this will be great. And I used it. It's perfect. It's great. It did come out a little differently than I was expecting. But don't ever let that get you down. When things like that happen, it's a great time to figure out how to make it work for you. Okay. I start by adding dish soap, some salt, some vinegar, but usually I just eyeball this, like it's not really important. It might be important proportions and stuff, but I think the heat is the most important thing. You don't want it to be like boiling the whole time, obviously, because you're gonna get dye everywhere. And the tan, don't forget to add the dye, that's important too. I usually let it go for maybe half an hour, depending on if you want the color to be a little bit more saturated or not. I even let it go for an hour sometimes. If you want it to be less, maybe 15 minutes or so. Always wash it out with cold water, cold ass water, we like to call it in this household. You want the dye to stay there and stuff, so that will really help it lock and load, you know? Get that vinegar smell out of there too. That's not cute. Then it's time to reanimate the bear. You stuff the bear, you gotta really get in there. Get in the little nooks and crannies and make sure it's all stuffed. Actually, no joke though, I do try to make sure that like the limbs and stuff are stuffed nicely so that you get a nice little cushion, a little good canvas to work on as you're making a bear. Next part is clay. Whoa. Clay is always a process. I would say I experience a lot of emotional range during this era, for sure. What you always want to start off with, this is very important, is conditioning the clay, which to me the word doesn't, line up with what you got to do. I guess it does. But condition, you have the clay. Clay, you got to mash it. You got to mash it together. Really roll it out with your hands because the heat of your hands will help, condition it, I guess, warm it up. And do that a while until it's warm and soft to knead and work with. Yeah. For the clay face part, I bet there's a better way to do this, but I personally take 2 pieces of parchment, the clay in a ball, a book on top, the floor down here, and then just mash. What I do, keep my fingers underneath the sides to make sure that it is even all the way around and stuff. I keep hitting. One of my favorite little tools that I have is this tiny ass little scale, about yay big. And it's great. I got it from a chemistry kit that my sibling, when they were in chem 2 years ago, when I first started making these clay face bears, and I was like, this is it. I need it. It's so good for making horns, eyelids, other things, just to keep consistency. You can eyeball it if you want. That's totally acceptable, but I like to make sure that things are as even as possible because I'm not great at eyeballing. Even though I did that for the dyeing, but that's fine. I start by just making all the pieces for the clay face. I make sure that I have the button size that I want already selected, and then basically I make the eyelids, the eye bags, which is my favorite. It's my favorite. I love how sleepy they look. As you can tell, I really don't wear concealer. I like to incorporate it into my art. I like to make the eye bags, I like to make the eyelids, and then I make sure that everything is even and already conditioned so that I can work with it really easily whenever I do start working with the clay then. When I have all my pieces already made and sculpted and stuff, I like to map out the face and make sure that things are as proportionate as I want it to be. Sometimes I might make the eyelids a little bit too small so I know I need to add some more clay or something like that. But it's always good to make sure that you have things mapped out so that it doesn't look bad when you're done with it. Yeah. Since the Squonk is a little, he's a little wrinkly dude and we love it. It's a great thing, texture. I wanted to add some little bumps and stuff to give a good base for where the wrinkles will be so that there's already a nice little wrinkle pattern going on and stuff so that I have a little bit more to work with. Also, a very, very important thing and one of my favorite little clay accessories, additions that you can use is clay, what the hell is it called? I'll put a picture of it up here or something, but it's clay liquid glue basically, and when it bakes it hardens and you have to make sure to use a decent amount and stuff, but it hardens and it's perfect. It is the best stuff, and if you want really durable pieces, always use this for everything that you're attaching and stuff because then it will stay on there. Hell yeah. When I was done adding the eyes and the eyelids, I made sure to go back and map out where I wanted some of the major wrinkles to be, the directions I wanted the wrinkles to go. I was looking at my references during this point for sure, making sure that it was looking as squonk-like as possible. Squonk. Now that everything's attached, it gets to be the fun part, and by fun, I mean 6 hours of making wrinkles on this little clay face bear because I love him and I want to bring him to life. But I went in with my 2 silicone tools. There's one that is round all around, and then there's one that has a blade. It's a silicone blade. I'm sure I'll put up pictures or whatever. But they're my favorite tools. They're so good for getting textures, especially for this batch. I use them quite a lot. And they're really good for wrinkle textures. Like, I highly, highly recommend these two tools. And for this part, I was thinking about the direction of the wrinkles, making sure that they weren't like the most, oh, we're staying away from this. They're not the most pretty wrinkles ever and stuff. Like, it's not all uniform, making sure things look a little jagged and whatever, and a little fun home slice. I really wanted to kind of work with like a face, because this does not look like a real creature face, obviously, and stuff. Very puppet inspired or whatever. And so you have a lot of freedom with making whatever kind of face shape that you want to bring to life and stuff. So one of my things that I paid attention to was around the chin area, really making it like, woo, little accentuation and stuff, because it's already a flat surface, so you have freedom to like make it however you want, and that's always fun. Art is fresh. So then I had all my wrinkles done. Definitely took quite some time. Now's a fun part. We get to add warts, all the beauty marks to this little dude, but ugly marks, because ugly's okay. Beauty has been set by people who do not matter, and I live by that. Unfortunately, humans are not a randomness machine. We're not very good at doing things random, so I really tried my best to like map out where the warts were going to go first before I press them down in. And for some of them, I tried to make some warts like be a little bit closer together to give some randomness, and then sporadically like place them around and stuff. And that seemed to work out. It seemed to be cute, fun, and fresh. Of course, this squonk looks very cute without all of his tears and stuff, but he looks even cuter with the tears. So we're going to add a little bit of snot, a little bit of dribble. He may be sad, but he's really fun at parties. And again, for adding the tears and stuff, I used that liquid clay, whatever the hell it is, that is like the glue adhesive. Perfect. Love it so much. I went ahead and added all the holes for the stitching the face on. I like to knock all the clay pieces out at once so that whenever I paint things, it will be easy to keep color coordination through all of it and stuff. So we're moving on to the mouth now, which is one of my favorite parts of anti-bears. I love mouths so much. Oh my god, specifically the shape that I tend to do are very inspired by Gumball, those Hubba Bubba commercials, Wallace and Gromit. So good. I really grew up with these things, and basically my art is just to try to reconnect with my inner child and make little loose happy with all these little fun little Jim Henson creations and stuff. I went ahead and used my tiny little scale to map out all the teeth, get them pressed down and nice so that they'll be ready to go in the oven, and then I can add them really nicely to the mouth later. At this point, I also went ahead and made some spots to put all around the squonk because he's covered in warts. Beautiful little warts. He's a little warty dude. I wanted to have these done so that I could get the base color on everything, including the mouth. Now that the teeth have been baked, I went ahead and added those to the mouth. I make sure to add little... the hell are they called? Gums. I make sure to add gums, and then I put the mouth on top of the gums. Make sure to use the glue to add the mouth to the gums as well as the teeth. I like to put it on the back of the teeth and then stick them on down, and it's all good then, yeah. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to get into those nook and crannies, so I even make sure to use my silicone tools or anything to press those down in so that they look nice, yeah. Now that it's all built, it's again time for texture, and this was really fun too because I made sure to move with the shape of the mouth and really experiment with the direction of all of the kind of curves that the mouth has and stuff, so I really got to play around with that, and again, make sure that things weren't too nice, not too pretty. Really went over some lines to make sure that it looked like there were some folds and stuff like that. Then it was time to add some warts to the mouth. I was looking at the face as a reference while I was doing this to see how many warts I had on the face versus the mouth, and made sure that it was a little balanced with it. So if I had more warts on the right side of the face, I would put more on the left side of the mouth, which I think is what I did, but I was just guessing that. We're whipping the tiny scale out again, and it is time for horns and toes. I guess they're horns and toes for this dude. And hooves! I love making hooves for the dudes. I was so excited. I wanted to make the squonk look a little different from its original design, so I added some hooves to him because I thought that would be a cute little wrinkly hooves. Once I have all of the toes and horns measured, I literally just go in. I'm so lucky to have a glass table. Love it so much. Definitely recommend for any clay workers out there. and I just roll the like little balls that I have made and stuff until I get a general shape that I like, and then I go in and really like make sure that it looks really nice. It's kind of uniform, and you can even go in and smooth it out a little bit more so that there aren't any finger marks or anything like that on the horns then. But for this one, that doesn't matter too much because you're going to go in and add some more texture on top of it and some warts, so it's all good. For the texture part, it's a little difficult because you do just have to like hold it, or at least that's what I was doing. And I went in with my silicone tool, and basically I kind of just pressed, made sure that things were going in the same direction, turned the thing around, and then just kind of went on top of where I already went so that it would be really, really in depth on texture. I also added some warts to the toes. I didn't add too many because he's going to be pretty warty all over himself and stuff, which is a great thing. And then the toes are all done, so they're ready to go off into the oven. And now it's time for a fun part. Got to make some hooves. Very fun. Use the scale to make sure that they're the same size, and then I press it down onto the glass table, make sure it's all smooth, nice, pat, pat, pat. And then there's usually like a little impression or some residue left to see what the shape of the next hoof needs to be so that it's pretty symmetrical, pretty nice. But asymmetry is okay and always welcome here at Lucy's World. Then it was time to add texture to the hooves, and basically I did the same thing I've been doing this whole time, really went in different directions to see what would work best for the clay itself. I think I did this twice because the first one I did didn't come out too well, and so the second time I was really happy with it. A big thing with working with clay and stuff like this is it's really easy. If you mess up, you can just squash it, start again and stuff. Of course, if you've been working a long time, that's not the best, but it's okay to fuck around and find out. Like, just see what works best for you and really take time to see what makes you happy and stuff. It's okay if things just make you happy. That's all that matters. Now, okay, this is a fun part, but I had to learn how to airbrush for this folklore batch, and oh my goodness gracious, I watched, I don't know, hours upon hours of video footage on YouTube and stuff of people explaining how they airbrush. I'm going to link some below because it really, really did help me, and I feel like I'm able to clean my airbrush to the best of its abilities, and I've been using it so often since I even started, and it works so well still, so highly recommend these videos then too. This is the color set that I ended up using. It just came with my airbrush set from Amazon that my mom got me for Christmas a year ago. I personally have had no problems with these colors. I think they have great coverage. They really like blend really nicely and stuff. I tried to do some ombre for some things and it worked perfectly. I added some airbrush reducer to some of the colors and that seemed to work really well too. I personally just used some condiment cups. I'm sure that I'll change this and use something a little bit better in the future, but just to mix up the colors that I needed and stuff, I would say this is perfect for whenever you need to pour it into the airbrush thing itself then. So you know how I said that the tan didn't work out how I wanted it to? That's okay. At first, whenever you're washing it out, it's like, well, that's awesome, that didn't work. But accidents happen for a reason, and it's okay. I ended up really liking the color that it did dry to be then, and I looked up color palettes to see what things would work best for each other, and I knew that I wanted to dry brush on top, which we'll get to later, on top of the face itself. So I wanted something that would be a little bit more deep to really give some depth to it, so I decided dark blue, why not? But I wanted a little bit more of a muted blue, not something that was so vibrant, so that it would go really well with all the colors that I wanted to use for this bear then. I went ahead and set up my airbrush, and this SQUONK thing was the first one that I had ever airbrushed. I decided to test things out to see if I really knew how to use the airbrush and stuff, really get my emotions out there, let that out. I'd say my emotions were known then. For painting horns in general, I always love to use a trusty little like $5 hot glue gun from like Dollar Tree or whatever, and then cheap hot glue, stuff that will not stick to too much. And I just glue the bottoms of all of the horns and stuff, and then I glue it to cardboard. If you have any old cardboard from cereal boxes or anything, cut that up, reuse it. It's always great to reduce, reuse, recycle, rummage. Another thing to note if you're airbrushing for the first time, make sure that your compressor, I believe, is not right on the edge of your table because it shakes when it's on and it will shake right off that table. I definitely didn't have to learn this the hard way. Definitely did not happen to me at all. But for those in the back who might want to, know about this information, I'm just going to let you know, not from experience. Again, this was the first time I was airbrushing / recording outside, so shout out to my amazing sibling who really guerrilla style filmed all of this and was like, hoo, this is nice. couldn't have done it without you. What I did during this was just make sure to move around in different directions since this dude is wrinkly. I want to make sure that all the paint was getting to every place and making sure that it was getting in nooks and crannies. Coverage was the most important thing at this stage, and I ended up doing 2 coats, I believe, just to make sure that things were really covered. Also, I did not mention this, but for the eyeballs for these dudes, I airbrushed 3 faces, I believe. I made sure to use liquid latex. I just used like creature liquid latex or whatever. And I did 3 coats on the eyeballs. It was a little tedious to like make sure that things were covered correctly and it wasn't covering the clay or anything itself. But it worked so well. I'll peel that off later and it'll be all nice. Once everything was fully airbrushed, it was then time to dry brush, which was really fun because this was like the first time I've ever dry brushed, but I really am so happy with how the results came out. Basically what I did is I just went in one direction, really made sure that I had minimal product on a dry brush is the important part, and just moving in one direction left to right to make sure that things were not necessarily uniform and stuff, but it did look a little messy, but still you could get the blue coming through the back of it and stuff to give some depth. Since it is the highlights, I also went over the warts with a little bit more of that yellow tint and stuff to make sure that they also popped so they would be a little bit more eye-catching. Painting this dude's face with dry brush techniques was so fun and satisfying. I really enjoyed it, and especially this being the first one, super fun. I made sure to use very minimal product because I didn't want things to get all blotchy and like have a big yellow blotch like in one area or anything, so just making sure to use minimal product and go in one direction is very important. For the warts, I decided to just do kind of a splatter technique to make sure that they had a little bit of that yellow on them and stuff, but I didn't want to do the dry brush because I thought that might look a little wonky, and I was so happy that I went with the splatter technique instead. It was a little difficult to use and cleanup was not fun, but I'm really happy with how it came out for sure. Once everything was done being painted with dry brush and airbrush, it was time to seal it. I ended up getting like 5 different seals for different kind of effects or whatever, but for this one I went with Krylon Matte Finish, and I did like this one. It was pretty good, but whenever I was done spraying it, it gave a little bit of a white overcast on top of it, which was fine for the squonk because it blended it even more in with the tan base that I was able to get with the dye job. For sealing it, I just went around the face and every piece that needed to be sealed and made sure to work in spurts. I did not just hold it down and stuff. Working in spurts is very important. And then I did maybe like 2 coats of this. I think for this one I only did 2. Just to make sure that it was fully covered, and I think this one's UV resistant also, so it'll have nice longevity. This is the fun part. I got to peel the liquid latex off. That was super nice. For the squonk, I think I only did 2 coats of the liquid latex, so it didn't work as well as the other faces that I had done. I at least learned from this one that you need to use a couple liquid latex coats to make sure that you get that nice peel off of it, and it really worked. It was awesome. This part, I cannot talk enough about it. My favorite part of the AntiBear process is dotting the little highlights in the eyes. It is my favorite thing. I could talk all day about it. But we got some little nice dot action there. We got some, hold up, dot. Dot. Love it. Oh my god, I love it so much. I didn't record this part, unfortunately, because the next part is UV resin. Luckily, this dude had very minimal amounts of UV resin to do on his face. It was just the eyes, tears, and his little snot bubble. I refuse at this point in my life to record UV resin because I look a little scary whenever I UV resin, and I'm a little overstimulated. There's so much going on. I can't even imagine having a camera around me whenever I have to do that. But I just use this sun as most of the time. I basically only use the sun as a tool whenever I UV resin. I just let it outside maybe for 20 minutes if it's a nice Sunday. Usually 7 and up is what I'm looking for on the UV scale. But I also use one of those UV flashlight things, and I'm hoping to get a UV chamber in the future or whatever, but whatever, that's a long conversation. Once I had the UV resin done, though, I went ahead and started to map out where I wanted the face to go on the teddy bear. I know it's just like it'll go in the center and stuff, but you really want to make sure that it's not off-center or anything like that. I decided to switch techniques, and I know I have little stitch holes on it and stuff, but I decided to stitch the bear base itself to make sure that everything is nice and locked in so that nothing will, from the fluff itself, will like peek through the back or anything like that, you know? Listen, I know I'm a liar for this. It's not great, but it's fun. I used to stitch bear faces on, and that totally works, but it wasn't my favorite technique for really making sure that things will last way, like, long into their lifetime. So I decided to stitch the face and just make it look like stitches are there and stuff. It's still one of my favorite things to do. I really love the look of it being like a toy basically, and that it's stitched on there. Then I went ahead and secured that knot with a little bit of E6000, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, my favorite product. I guess now is the time I'm talking about E6000, because now it is time to attach the face. Basically what I wanted to do is make sure that it would attach to the strings that I had sewn on there, and then all of the outer part to make sure that you can't get in there. That's really, really secure on there. Very, very carefully, I made sure that it was centered, that the eyes were level. I just had it in my lap while I did this to make sure that it got the best results that I wanted. And then I just used a rubber band to put it around the face, make sure that's not going to take up any paint or anything like that. I will say did not at all, so very happy. And then it secures it really nicely to the base to make sure that it won't move around. Once that was done drying, I went ahead and started adding all of the miscellaneous things that I wanted to add to the squonk to really bring him to life. I used more E6000, and I really, in this clip here, you can see that I really put it on the canvas part. I don't know if that's the right word, of the fur for the bear. Basically, I used scissors to cut off some of the fur, a little bit of a section, so that you get just the base part of it, I guess. And then I added E6000 to that, which I then added a little fur tuft to it, so he had some ear hair going on. I love it. And it will be so secure then. Like, I could literally hold this up just by that one piece. I was so happy with how this came out. When you add the E6000 to the base part and then kind of squish it together, it kind of goes underneath a little bit, so it's really locked in there, and I loved how this worked out. Went ahead and did the same thing by adding some eyebrows to him, and whenever I was cutting the fur tufts out for this, I had a huge fabric sheet of fur basically, and I made sure to cut them so that the fur would be going in the direction of the eyebrow that I wanted, the ear hair, armpit hair, and such. And it's little things like that that will add to like the overall presence of your finished piece then. Now it's time to add horns and toes and hooves. For the horns, I really do just eyeball this, but also I like to use pins to mark where I'm gonna add the horns basically, to make sure that it is as symmetrical as possible whenever I cut the little slips for the horns to go in. And for this, again, I just use E6000. I make sure to get it all on the base of the horn, and then it's perfect. It will like stay in there forever. I highly recommend. Then it was time to pluck some spots off of the cardboard that I reuse a lot. If you can't tell already, I really do believe in reduce, reuse, recycle, ramble, go on. I really just mapped out where I wanted these to go. I was thinking about randomness to make sure that it looked balanced with the rest of the warts on his face and stomach, mouth. And then I just did final lookovers to make sure that I had everything added that I wanted to really bring his little presence to life. And that was it. That was the last addition to the squonk, so now it's time to see the final reveal. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I don't know if this was a tutorial or just kind of a walkthrough and stuff, but I hope you guys got some information out of it. Here's me. Yes. Here's me and my little son. I love him so much. I probably will not sell this dude just because he means so much to me, especially with his little insecurity arc that I gave him and stuff, and how he's conquered his inner demons with insecurity. Even though he's still crying, but you know, who can't? Who can't stop crying? I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy anti-bears. Please have an amazing rest of your day. Make sure to enjoy life. It's okay if you don't, though. It's okay to take some time to yourself. Make sure you're doing well, okay? Gotcha. Make sure to check out anti-bears on Instagram. The @ is just Lucy's World, and then my TikTok is Blue Bish Fairy if you want to check that out. Also, I have some little cute videos and some promo going up of these dudes, so hope y'all enjoyed. Have a great day.